Now, when we're talking about enforcement of different rules and regulations, the driveway parking for HOAs and overnight parking. This has been for the past 9 months, we've been hearing a lot about this. So the legislature has passed some legislation which basically states that if it's a commercial vehicle, you're allowed to park it in your driveway overnight, according to the statute.
Well, now it's a work vehicle because now they define commercial vehicle. So the commercial vehicle is still prohibited. You could still prohibit the commercial vehicle from being parked on your driveway overnight, but they've defined commercial vehicle to 3 axles over a certain weight that's completely outside the realm of our thought of what is a commercial vehicle. And most of the time, the commercial vehicles that we think about, they've now said, no, those are not commercial vehicles. Those are work vehicles.
Correct. Now, where this gets kind of interesting is, for each association, also I should have prefaced this at the beginning. None of this is legal advice. We're having discussions,
we're just having a conversation.
Yeah, if there's any question for your association, you need to talk to a lawyer specifically about it. But we start to get into something called Kaufman language, and this is all very interesting because what's going on in the legislature right now is very much impacting what we're talking about right now. Both with MRTA actually, and this is impacting it because there is a bill that's being proposed that would allow associations to dissolve. And then there's arguments, well, if they don't do MRTA, they dissolve. Well, no, they don't really. And so they talk about the offerings there. But that same bill talks about Kaufman language, which kind of plays into where we're at with the, can you enforce driveway parking or not?
Yes.
And this new bill would basically say that all associations now have to take a vote for Kaufman language.
Yep.
So we'll do a whole nother thing about Kaufman language. We won't get into that right now because I don't want to spend too much time. But let's
explain it though.
Okay, go for it.
Especially because we're going to talk about driveways. So Kaufman, in a nutshell, means does your association or do your governing documents, are they subject to the changes in the statute as they may be amended from time to time? So for example, if your governing documents were recorded in 2015, there have been many changes to the HOA statute since that time, or your condo statute since that time. If it was recorded in 2015, it's only subject to the statute in 2015. So any new changes, because your recorded governing documents is a contract between you and the association. And so now, if there are new changes, you technically as the owner didn't agree to any of those changes. And so the question is, well, do those new changes apply to you? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on your Kaufman language. Is there Kaufman language in your governing documents that says, yes, you are an owner in this association, yes, this declaration is your contract, but are you subject to the new statutes as it may be amended from time to time? That is Kaufman in a nutshell. So
where Kaufman plays into our discussion about driveway parking. So let's say that I've got an association and there is a pickup truck for a pool company that has pool company signs and they're parking in the driveway at this HOA.
Yep.
Now, based off the current statute says that that's allowed now.
Yes.
So depending on if you have Kaufman statute language or not, that may or may not be allowed in that driveway. What we're running into also, though, is when it comes to the actual enforcement of that and how far you want to go to enforce it.
Yes.
Because you have to be reasonable in your enforcement of things. If you want to get in front of a judge and argue this, all of that kind of plays out. So right now, let's say that, okay, also let's clarify, because I don't think we've explained the litmus test of Kaufman language. So if I have Kaufman language in my document, then I have to follow current statutes, right?
Yes.
If I don't have Kaufman language in my documents, then I don't have to follow current statutes.
That's correct. The good and the bad things about the current statute.
So if I want to be able to enforce driveway parking, and I do not have Kaufman language in my documents, I could, in theory, attempt to enforce this truck that's sitting in a driveway.
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
but I'm going to have to follow all the new fine processes.
Maybe, because again, if you don't have Kaufman language.
Oh, if my fine process is defined in my documents.
That's right.
Then I wouldn't have, okay. I wasn't going down that road, but I see. So if I have my fine process defined in my documents and I don't have Kaufman language and my documents don't allow a vehicle that's defined as this in my driveway, then I could follow that.
Yes.
That would be the clear one.
You could follow your own governing documents.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have fining defined in your governing documents, then again, it's a mess when you don't have Kaufman language, because you could make the argument that you're only required to follow the fining procedures from your 2015 declaration and the 2015 version of the statute.
Right.
As opposed to 2026 or 2025, whatever is the
But the problem with that is when you get in front of the judge.
Oh, yes.
Which we've now discovered.
Yes. This is all in theory, right? This is all in theory. It's all review of the statute, all the review of the governing documents. And then when you get in front of a judge, the judge is going to say, well, I reviewed the statute and you didn't do what you were supposed to.
Yes.
And then you have to educate the judge to say, Your Honor, you're looking at the wrong version of the statute. Now
that doesn't always go over great, just so you know. We haven't had very good experience here, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. So as much as we can, we don't try and correct a judge.
Yeah.
So yes, it's challenging when you don't have Kaufman language, because not only are you trying to explain all of the situations and all of the complexities of different statutes to a judge, but before you even get to a judge, you have to explain that to your owners, and that's difficult to do.
Yeah. So as far as driveway parking goes, the other issue that we've been seeing is on-street parking.
Yes.
Now, the statute doesn't address on-street parking, unless I'm missing something.
No, it does not.
Okay, so the association can still adopt reasonable rules for on-street parking.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Okay. Now, on private roads, do you know of anything that involves emergency access and fire codes for access on private roads?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know specifically, and I'll be very straight with you. I don't know specifically because I've always read that there should be some clearance. There should be a certain amount of clearance so that emergency vehicles can get through. And I've read that in the fire code. But I don't know if it's very much enforced. And so we've had to, association by association, enforce it ourselves. And that's where the rules come in to say, if you're going to allow parking on the street overnight, if you're going to, everyone must park on one side of the street, because the emergency vehicles are wide and they need to get through to get to different homes.
In practice, that can be a little difficult, though, to have everybody park on one side of the street.
Oh, yes, it is.
I mean, unless you're going to put a red line down one side of the street so you can only park on the red line side.
And then who's going to enforce it?
Right.
I always tell associations, we can adopt as many rules as you want. Who's actually enforcing this? Are the board members going to be walking around at 2 a.m. taking photos? You know, who's going to be calling the tow truck? Are they calling you, Adoni? I don't know.
And that gets to our A thing that's on my list, which has become, I think, one of the greater challenges that we're seeing, which is selective enforcement. Mm-hmm. And at what point is it that line? How do you make sure that you're enforcing everything, very even-handedly?
Yeah.
And that you're not at risk for selective enforcement? What we're talking about right now, as far as this driveway parking, all this, if we have a resident who they're parking in their driveway or they're violating a rule, and you tell them you're violating the rule and they immediately comply, everything is great. And that's 90-95% of residents. Mm-hmm. There are a few percentage that we have to go a little bit further. There's that 1% where we're going to end up in front of a judge in a court trying to explain where we're at.
Yes.
And it's an expensive process to get to there. And they bring up different defenses. So one of the defenses that I've seen them bring up is the statute change. I've seen them bring up the fine process change. But the most common one we're seeing is selective enforcement.
That's right.
As a defense. And so when it comes to enforcing on-street parking, I think that the best option that exists for the association, there are companies that you can hire that will go out and will issue citations on a regular basis. I think that gets around the selective enforcement argument.
That certainly helps, yes, because you're actually doing something about it. The issue with selective enforcement is you have a rule on the books, you have this rule, and you're not enforcing it consistently. And so if you hire these companies, it takes the burden off of the board members to be walking around at 2 a.m. trying to figure out if anyone is violating this rule.
Correct. Yeah. And, it's interesting because, again, one of the things I do think the legislature does a very nice job of, which I didn't realize till recently, is when they're adopting legislation, they do a great job of trying to determine what's the financial impact of that rule. And that's something that I think...
That's great.
Yeah, and as managers, I think we need to start trying to do more of that. Like when a board's looking at adopting a rule, saying, okay, how are we going to enforce this? What is the plan to, and what is the cost going to be? And let's build it into the budget. Because anytime we add a rule, there has to be a monitoring enforcement provision. There's a cost, and I never thought about it. Every time we pass a rule as directors, we're increasing the cost of the association. We have to have a way of doing that. So, all right. I think that covers most of the little things that I was kind of concerned about with my parking and enforcement and MRTA. I hope everybody got a little bit of something from that, and hopefully you'll tune in next time. Thanks. Bye.